Christians, good evening. I hope you're having a good night tonight. We will continue our series on the book of Job. We are in chapter 1. And we have gone through the first 12 chapters and are now about to embark upon the next section within this particular chapter. And what we have here is the chapter broken up into sections, and this is the third and final section of the first chapter before we head into chapter 2. And what we have seen take place so far is given in the first 5 verses, this description of Job and a characterization of his person, the kind of person that he was. And the Bible makes it clear that he was a man who was perfect, a man who was upright, a man who feared God, and a man who avoided evil in every appearance of it. This is what we know about. And then, in the next verses, beginning at verse 6 down through 12, we were giving a window into a dialogue taking place in heaven between God and the devil, between God and Satan. And that dialogue really reveals much about what we should understand as Christians as it pertains to suffering and affliction and the sovereignty of God and how these two things coincide. So now we come to the section of this portion of the chapter where the sufferings and the afflictions that Satan appealed to God in order to inflict upon Job are about to take place. And so verse 13 marks the beginning of Job's afflictions and his sufferings, which God gave him permission to do. God gave him the permission to do. It was in the sovereignty of God. It was under his guidance and where he permitted these sufferings that Job was about to undergo. Many folks like to draw attention of these things to the devil's work. But we need to understand he is merely an instrument. He's merely an instrument that God is using to prove Job, to vindicate himself through the faith of Job, and to demonstrate that the relationship between God and his people is not one that is characterized by mutual self-interest. God does what he does for our benefit and blessing, and we do what we do toward God and reverence him out of reverence and awe and out of thankfulness and gratitude for what he has done for us. So now we come to Job chapter 1. Job chapter 1 and verse 13. Now, it says this: there was a day when his sons, Job's sons, and his daughters, when they were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. There was a day when his children were together and they were just eating and drinking like they always had. Verse 14. And there came a messenger unto Job, and said, the oxen were plowing, and the asses feeding beside them. And the Chaldeans fell upon them, and took them away. They have slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and only I have escaped to tell you. Verse 16. While he was yet speaking, there came also another, and said, the fire of God is fallen from heaven, and has burned up the sheep and the servants, and consumed them. And I only am escaped alone to tell thee. While he was yet speaking, there came another, and said, the Chaldeans made out 3 bands, and fell upon the camels, and have carried them away. Yes, and slain the servants with the edge of the sword, and only I escaped alone to tell you. Verse 18. While he was yet speaking, there came also another, and said, your sons and your daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's house. And behold, there came a great wind from the wilderness, and smote the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young men, and they are dead. And only I am escaped alone to tell you. Verse 20. Then Job arose. He rent his mantle, shaved his head, fell down upon the ground, and worshipped. And he said, naked came I out of my mother's womb. Naked I shall return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Last verse in this section. In all of this, listen to these words, brethren. In all of this, Job did not sin, nor did he charge God foolishly. In all of this, all of these things that happened, he essentially lost everything in a considerably short period of time. And we're going to go over some of the details of, or talk about what happened, most of which we all know. However, the thing that we need to really focus on, and the things that are the most instructive to us, is how Job responded to these things. And keep in mind, what we're reading now in terms of his affliction are just beginning. It is just the beginning. And it's an amazing book to read. And in the next chapter, it gets even heavier, because we read in verses 6 through 12 about this council that had taken place in heaven at the throne of God, where the sons of God came together and Satan came in among them. But we're going to see in chapter 2 that council is reconvened a second time. And I will be looking forward to getting into that and to address what was happening at that second council, especially after what is occurring in the verses that we are beginning to get into tonight. So before I get into it, I would like to appeal or reach out to all of those who are on the panel and give you an opportunity to give your opening remarks on this subject, this chapter, this book, whatever you think may be helpful to add to the conversation or to jumpstart the conversation regarding what we're reading in the book of Job. So with that being said, I will start with Brother Lucky Slevin. What are your opening remarks, brother?
Grace and peace to everybody. I don't even know what to say. I'm thinking Job's kind of happy he didn't have a cell phone. Nobody would have made it. And to tell him, he would have just got a text.
Yeah.
I mean, he got hit pretty hard here from multiple directions. It wasn't even just like one enemy. Like the devil literally threw 12 curveballs at him. Mm-hmm. Lost everything he owned, his kids. Mm-hmm. But not his faith.
Not his faith. Absolutely right, brother. He did not. I'm looking forward to having the conversation about that in light of what he's going through, and that we will do. Brother Jeffrey, encouraging servant. What about you? Opening remarks, thoughts?
Well, I think, Jonathan, we have to commend Job here. So let's put ourselves in Job's place. All right? We've just received all of this bad news from these messengers who have brought it to him. Now, how would we react if we lost what he did? I have to admit, I would like to think I would react something like Job did, but I'm not so sure I would. Nowhere in Scripture, at least offhand, do we find a biblical person losing this much this quickly. And it was the hand of God being prodded by the devil, asking God to do it, to remove this from him. And so I think we have to give Job some credit. Now, he's going to go through a lot more, and eventually he's going to learn that he wasn't there when God set the cornerstone of the universe. Job has maybe some pride issues going on. But nevertheless, I think we got to give Job a little bit of credit here for him saying, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I will return. The Lord gave, and the Lord takes away, but the name of the Lord be praised. I'm not so sure, Jonathan, I would be praising God after having lost everything he has, So Job is an excellent man of God, and that's all I want to say.
Well done, brother. Thanks a lot. Sister Lisa, your opening remarks. Welcome.
Oh, thanks. Good evening, everybody. So I'll just start by saying, wow. I mean, Job losing his children all in one foul swoop. That alone, that right there, that's something. We know his children meant everything to him. He was making sacrifices on their behalf, just in case. And to have them taken, and, we hear that he did not sin, and in his thoughts, in his words, or his deeds, and he fell and worshiped. I mean, wow. I mean, this is a man that this whole study has kept him in my brain as a reminder, just when I want to feel like a little spoiled brat and cry because something didn't go my way, something, so this is so amazing. I think he's the great example for us. And I know that one, the kids, I think about my children.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I can't even imagine. Unimaginable. So, yeah, that's all I have to say.
Brother Jeff, man of God, go ahead, brother. Your thoughts.
Well, everybody's pretty much said it, but it's like You might find this hard to believe, but back in the day, when I was in high school, I think my sophomore English class, we read Job at public school. It just goes to show you what you could do back in the 70s. But I've always felt this was an exemplar of suffering and, how to survive under it. And certainly Job just proved what God said just now. We can finish the book with that last statement.
Right.
It's a matter of, that's, talk to 100 people with me being at the head of them and say, what would you do? I said, I'm not sure I'd do that, and, you just have to realize that there's a lesson here that we definitely need to absorb. This isn't just, oh, wow, he's just a great guy. You're thinking, wait a minute, let's stop and think about this. When God sends, when things happen, the first thing we need to remember is we love God and serve him, and not to think, oh God, why did this happen to me? I've had people say this. People say, well, why me? You know what I say when I start to think that?
Mm-hmm.
Why not me?
Right. Absolutely.
Why not me? Thanks.
Why not? Brother Mario, you there, brother? Mario Art, are you there?
Yes. I was trying to click off the thing. Well, thank you for hosting this, and welcome. Thank you to all your brothers. I guess I can, obviously relate to what everybody else has said as far as the, the loss that Job is going through. For me, though, I'm kind of focusing on the supernatural aspect of it, where in 6 it says, now that there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and I remember growing up and you hear the story that Satan appeared before the sons of God and stuff like that. And, and I took it for face value. Later on in life, I just wonder, well, if God is so holy and God is just, there's nothing in his presence that, that is, the opposite of God. How does the devil just nonchalantly just, sneaks into the line and just shows up to God, So that I always have found that kind of intriguing. And then, later on, you read what the Hebrew says about that and whatnot. And I'm sure you're going to cover that. But to me, what's more intriguing as I've gotten older is this whole sort of, celestial test, of and then Job being in the center of it, because yes, we can all relate to the calamity and everything that comes, and we see his steadfastness through all of that. But this is wild when you read that. It's like the sons of God got together in this huge council and everything, and this character Satan comes up and God is just asking him, so what do you think? It's like, what have you been doing? Like just having this conversation, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So there has to be something else to this. Right. So I'm looking forward to see how we exegete that and see how that, what comes out of that, because I'm sure that there's a lot.
There is a lot, brother. And I got to tell you, I really appreciate your where your focus is on this whole thing, because those who have been here from the beginning of this exposition, which has only been about a week now, but one thing that I keep bringing up is how magnificent this situation is, to be able to get insight into this council, because there's this council, where God had convened all these angels together. And here comes Satan in the middle of it. Now, you made the comment about about how it happened, and I believe that one is either one of two things, and they both amount to the same thing. Either he was invited, or he was simply permitted to remain when he got there. Because when he does get there, when he does get there, God engages with him. So, but what we all know, if we understand who God is, we understand that there's nothing that takes place that goes outside of God's decree. In other words, like Sister Lisa says, he ordered it. We are getting insight into how things really work. We're getting insight into how things in creation, all of creation, how it really works. Because we can focus on Job's affliction as being a singular time where the council of God got together, God and his council got together, and they had these discussions or whatever it is, however that really manifests itself. But it is, I believe it is safe to say that outside of this one particular instance, that this was something that went on regularly, where Satan had probably had no involvement at all. Where Gabriel was, where Michael, the archangel, was, where all the other angelic hosts were, the 2/3 that had not turned against God. So it's telling, but we can't go beyond what the word of God says. But there is a lot that we can glean from here, from what we are to understand. And before I go on, before I call Mariah, because I'm calling her next, I'm going to address, when we get done, I want to address something. Well, she's leaving now, Nettie. So I guess it's going. She's leaving, so it won't matter anyway. So Mariah, go ahead. What is your opening remarks?
Hello. Good evening, everyone. I guess it would be that if it's not one thing, it's another. You know,
Yeah.
it's just simultaneously. It wasn't even like let a few days pass. It's like one is telling him that this is happening, another comes in while he was speaking, and now he gets more bad news. And you know, I remember when my brother passed away. He was only 7, but my dad and my mom were devastated. And it took them a while to be able to grieve. And, I would say they're not still fully yet healed from that. So I can't imagine how he must have felt in that time, losing all of his children at one time.
Right.
So that in itself is a lot. And then all that you have, all your livestock, the way that you were feeding yourselves, or whatever the case may be, I think that it's insane. So it really brings into that perspective. If it's not one thing, it's another. And then how 20, and it says that he fell to the ground and he worshiped. And I think that that's just something that a lot of us would have to ask ourselves. Would we be dwelling on the issue and the problem at hand, or will we be on the floor worshiping on our hands and knees,
Right. Absolutely. Sister Candy, your thoughts, opening remarks.
Kind of along the lines of what Mariah said, because I was like, man, when it rains, it pours.
Yep.
Literally.
Another good way of looking at it, for sure.
I mean, yeah, I'm like Mariah. I can agree with everybody on here, but Mariah kind of hit where I kind of feel and come from with it. That's a lot to take at one time. And I can't even imagine what I would be thinking.
Right.
To know even how I would react to all of that at one time. Hush. Especially, like she said, when it was simultaneously, like while you're being told this, somebody else is coming to tell you more. And it's like, bam, 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 bam. It's like, how does your brain even process all that at the same time? Hush. I don't even know what you want. Go on somewhere. Sorry. I'm actually home tonight. Weather got me at home. So hopefully y'all can hear me a little better without the noise in the background. But yeah, I'm going to leave it at that and deal with this little varmint over here.
No problem. No, and we hear you great. It sounds good. Sister Audrey, how about you?
Hey guys, happy early Veterans Day to you and everyone else that is a veteran. So I think I'm on the other end. I love to see the confusion and pain, and doubting of Job, like when he's and I think it's in chapter 3 where he says, curse the one who didn't close my mother's womb. Like he didn't want to be born. And I love to see that because still God was faithful. So it's just encouraging that when we're at our lowest and we are having those moments where we are questioning God, like what is going on, that he still remains faithful to keep us by his power. So I love seeing the other side of Job where he's not as loving God or, as stern in his faith.
Well, I think that the point you raise, I would liken it to that Job was expressing real emotion, real human emotion, and going through a really trying period, like any of us do. Like listen, there are a lot of Christians, a lot of us, who don't want people to know how we really feel, especially here in America. We have a feeling, we believe to a large degree that and this is changing actually, but typically it was a matter of pride to hide one's true feelings. Now we're becoming a very sensitive people in a lot of ways, but to another extreme. But what you said, Audrey, resonates with me a lot, because what you pointed out was that God was faithful. And what we need to understand is that it is his faithfulness that ensures our faithfulness. It's the Lord's faithfulness that ensures ours. And that is his faithfulness to us is the assurance that we have that our faith will not fail. And so this is the connection between God and his children that Satan can't possibly understand. It's sort of like, a mother and a mother who loves her child. There's a special love with a mother and her child, as all of you who are mothers know. But there's a special love that a mother has to her child that the only way other people can get an understanding of it is through their own children. But a mother's particular bond to her children is special. It is elevated. It is intricate. It is ferocious. And with God, is on a whole different level when it comes to his people. It's a whole different ball game. And Job, God subjected him to what he himself was made by God to be able to handle. One lady who was making comments in the chat before she left, she said, if you haven't seen it, what she said was, do you think that Job would be the same way in 2025? And to be honest with you, I found that kind of an astounding question to ask. And because, like Lisa said, I think it was, who talked about the children alone would have been enough. The children alone, losing them. Not even the wealth stuff, the stuff part, but the children alone would have been enough. And the idea that the era would alter the way or would alter the pain of the loss of children would be different in a different time. I think it's amazing. I think it's an amazing, astounding comment to make, question to ask. Would it be different in 2025? It blows me away. But people do often think that their circumstances their time frame, what's happening with them is always greater than what's happening to everyone else who experiences it. Mariah, go ahead.
I just want to say no, that it wouldn't have changed. It would have remained the same because God does not change. And ultimately, it is, like you said, God's faithfulness that kept Job and Job tied to God. So ultimately, it wouldn't have mattered what era it was because God is unchanging.
He's unchanging. Absolutely. Not only, but here's the thing. Not only is God not changing, man isn't changing. Man isn't changing. We are still subject to all of the same things. And so the depravity of man and the way men's outlook on things, saved or unsaved, it is like Solomon, like Brother Kaz says, same old things. This is what Solomon was telling us about in Ecclesiastes. He was telling us everything that has been will be. Everything that will be has been. There is nothing new under the sun. All is vanity. This is what happens. But it is a rare stroke that God delivers that can take everything at once. And many people, even in this time period, have experienced it and know what it's like. And so in this verse here, in the first verse in Job 1, verse 13, there was a day when Job's sons and his daughters were eating and drinking wine in their eldest brother's homes. And at the outset, we see that this verse, it begins the calamity that Job is about to go through. They have his children are having this feast day, this day of festivity, and we know from the earlier part of this chapter where they would do this every day and at a different son's house. He had 7 sons, so every day the feast was at a different one of the sons' home, and the daughters were always present. And so now we see the 7th day, basically, where, or maybe it's not the 7th day, I don't know which day it is, but whatever day the oldest brother is having the feast, this is what day it is when things start to take place, to take place to remove Job's comfort and to start his affliction process. And this timing, no doubt, the timing of all of this was by God's sovereign providence. His sovereign providence, his control. He's the one who gave Satan leave to do this. He's the one that gave Satan permission to do this. And so the families all gathered together as they normally do, and they are experiencing the typical joy and merriment that they always had. And then we see the suddenness of all the sorrow that's to be brought upon Job as a result of all these things. And so we're going to have in these verses from verse 13 through 22, we're going to see Job losing the loss of his property, and we're going to see him losing the loss of his children. Property and children. And here's the thing. What I'm hoping, if God is merciful to me and to all of us, that we can put ourselves in his place. Put ourselves in his place. And I'm sure that if most of us do, we're going to be looking at this from the standpoint that we have never experienced what he experienced. Most of us have never built an empire, had 10 children, had the place of leadership from a religious standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint, had this respect and reputation, and to have all these things taken all at once. When you think about the things that each one of us have whined about in our life, me included, when we think about the things that we have whined about the most, I am hoping that when you